Hey there, Sam Mirejovsky here, and the What's Right show, powered by Sam & Ash Injury Law. Happy Thursday, February the 6th. I am, friends, unfortunately still in Europe. I'm here through the weekend. I'll be back in the saddle home on Monday, so just looking forward to that. But I have to, before I get to all the political stuff, I wonder if just for a minute you'll indulge me with a little bit of something personal. You know, I'm here. I'm obviously got a lot of family in the Czech Republic, and I'm visiting people, and I came to a realization recently that's sort of come to a head as a consequence of some family drama that I'm not necessarily gonna get into, but I've come to a realization, and I know many of you listening are grandparents, many of you are parents, and some of you are thinking about becoming parents. And I have 3 beautiful kids. I love my kids incredibly. I have a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an 11-year-old, a boy and 2 girls, and they're absolutely fantastic. My middle child, of course, I've mentioned before, is spending the year here in the Czech Republic. So, of course, her doting father, takes every opportunity he gets to come here to visit her. So just, that's, some of you are wondering, boy, Sam, you're in Europe again. Well, if your 14-year-old daughter was in Europe more or less alone, you'd be here a lot too. Now, when I was, I'm going to be 45 this year, which is really interesting, crazy to think about because, I feel like I'm in my 20s. I still have the same, drive and motivation and excitement for work and for my career and, adventure that I had in my 20s. And, but the difference between being 25 and being 45, aside from the added wisdom, is that you start to realize how quickly life flies by. And one thing that you do not realize in your youth is how much more dependent, we will be as older adults on our kids. This is a reality that really most people don't think about. Now, without getting into too much the family stuff, I'll say this. You are an example. If you've got kids, you are an example to your children in how you behave. Now, if you're men, listen, you're an example to your kids about how you treat your wife. But you're also an example to your children in how you treat your parents. Are you the kind of person that helps your parents, that is respectful to your parents? Your kids are watching this. And if you're not, don't expect that your children will be respectful and attentive to you when you become an older person. It may not seem like much at 45. I can't imagine really what it's like to be dependent on somebody else. And the thought, frankly, horrifies me because I'm just a super independent person. And, my 2 parents, both of them are, wonderful people, and they're thankfully, still very active and live and function completely independently. But that all will change. It'll change for them, and it will certainly change for me and for my wife. And I'm entering this, and I'm seeing some of my family members who behaved poorly to their parents now get older and infirm, and have, their kids really mistreat them. And it's heart-wrenching. It is absolutely, folks, I can't even tell you how much it's affected me this week, seeing it up close and hearing some awful stories. I mean, this is like, elder abuse stuff. This isn't like a lack of attentiveness. I mean, this is just outright, fraud and mistreatment. And But then again, go back and I hear the stories, from my parents, and I understand, that this is not the first round that something like this has happened. So we are examples to our kids in every way. But I don't know. I think a lot of people, when you're in your 20s, your 30s, even your 40s and 50s, you do not appreciate just how quickly, deterioration will come in your life. And it could come sooner than later. And if you've got kids and you're expecting that those kids are going to step up and look after you, I mean, think again. Unless, of course, you have demonstrated to them how you take care of an elderly parent. So that's my, I'm just, folks, we spend, what is it, 10 hours a week together here on this program. And I had to share this with you. And by the way, incidentally, this is one of the things for me, this is a very much a conservative principle, right? You, you know, when they do and this has been a topic of conversation quite a bit lately, because when they study the issues and places that concern liberals versus conservatives, they've done this as a plot map, and they found that conservatives, right, a conservative person with a conservative point of view tends to be far more concerned about matters closer to their home, to their place of residence, right, than a liberal. A liberal tends to be less concerned with what happens in their house, in their town, village, city, whatever, their community, and far more interested in solving problems that are more remote. And when you think about it, right, you think about the liberals that and they like this whole USAID thing. I mean, their argument for keeping it, which is laughable, is that this is a system by which we're curing malaria in Africa and solving AIDS in Indonesia. And, we got all these, we got to save the world. But these are people, a lot of them, who live in New York City, and they can't figure out what to do with the crazy fentanyl addicted bums that are tearing up their city. These are the people that tell us, liberals, right, that tell us we got to solve all these problems for all these different people. But when you go into their lives, are they the ones that are sacrificing their lifestyle to help a elderly parent, to help a family member, to literally, help somebody close to them? I think this is a very important point. When people ask me what it is to be a conservative, we can rattle off, conservative issues and topics, but and again, I particularly with what is going on this week with Musk tearing through the enormous waste, profligate spending in Washington, and realizing that and by the way, it's not just financial mismanagement; it's deliberate. It's a giant political slush fund for the Democratic Party. But when you look at the news that's been going on this week, and we realize that, okay, fiscal conservatism is real for the first time in practice in my entire life, right? In my entire politically aware life. Even Reagan didn't come in and take a sledgehammer to this waste the way Trump is doing right now with Elon Musk. But you do understand that it's more than just the money. Conservatism is a way of life. And we conservatives are, by and large, we are just wired differently. And how we treat our family, how we treat our kids, how we treat our parents is an enormous part of what makes us who we are politically. We take care of our own. When we talk about being independent, when we talk about taking care of our family, we don't expect the government to come in and support us. We don't expect that somebody else, it'll be outsourced to some community center to take care of our parents. if we are able, if we have the means, if we have the physical ability, if we have a little bit of extra time, then we expect that we will take care of it. And that's the critical difference, because libs, look at this and go, oh, well, let's build a community center over there. Let's give some money for senior care. Yeah, we're going to give money. Meals on Wheels. Yeah, we're going to do that. Chuck Schumer. Oh my gosh, they've cut funding for Meals on Wheels. First off, Chuck, do you know how many Meals on Wheels we could send out in the world if we weren't paying Politico $8 million for some, $14,000 subscriptions? Number one. And number two, might be a great program. But how many of those people could be helped by their family members? How many family people, out there have just outsourced taking care of their own to the government? I suspect quite a few, and I suspect most of them are very liberal. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT, the What's Right Show is on. Brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam & Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Great to be here with you behind the What's Right microphone. My email, sam@samandashlaw.com. And of course, you can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, @What'sRightSam. Now, speaking of Twitter, the Wall Street Journal ran a story the other day that I think is important to look at, because, well, the story was that basically investors are flocking to Twitter, to X. So let's see. They sold, Twitter sold $5.5 billion of X loans. So people came in and provided loans to Elon Musk for him to consummate the sale and purchase Twitter. I think the selling price was somewhere around $43 billion. So a sizable chunk of that recently traded, and it apparently it sold for, and I'm just looking at it here, about 97% of face value. So it's not right, and right, it's a highly desirable asset, in other words, right? You're selling it almost at 100%. So why is that? Well, the 2024 adjusted earnings, okay, that's before interest, taxes, depreciation, has about $1.25 billion, and annual revenue at $2.7 billion. In 2021, their adjusted EBITDA, right, that kind of benchmark for what their revenue is, was only $682 million, and they had $5 billion in revenue. So this is the entire point when you want to think about what it is. What is it that Elon Musk does? Is he took a company that was making $5 billion, but only eking out a $682 million operating profit, and he gutted it, just gutted it. But he made it better, and I'll tell you this, as a user of X, it's just quantifiably and qualifiably a better experience. So revenue dropped. It's been coming back up, but where's the profit? The profit is double, okay? Literally double, $1.25 billion versus $682 million, right about there, okay? 2x. This is what Musk is going to do with the government. Now, I want to point something out. I'm bringing this up in part because there was a tweet that Cenk Uygur put out. He's the Young Turks guy, and he's one of these Democrats. We'll put him in the kind of the Bill Maher category of Democrats. He's going to be a Democrat. He's not going to leave the Democratic Party. He's not going to become a conservative, okay? He's not one of us, but he is an openly, critical Democrat of his party. And he said something that was really stupid the other day, and that was something along the lines that Musk is experiencing a bubble, that everybody experiences a bubble, that people love Musk, they love what he's doing, and that's going to burst, and his popularity is going to go down. And there are some surveys that show that Musk is less popular now than he was a month ago, whatever. Okay. And my point is, in this, do people remember the articles that the Wall Street Journal was putting out about Musk after he took over Twitter and fired everybody, basically? And they were like, oh my gosh, who lent him money? This is like a toxic asset now. Like, these billionaires are going to have multi-billion dollar write-offs for the investments that they made. and look, I mean, it was painful at first, right? Twitter was struggling. It was buggy. It had problems. I remember in the immediate aftermath of Twitter being taken over by Elon Musk, that there were all sorts of technical issues. Stuff wasn't displaying correctly. You put out a tweet and it would disappear into the ether. There undoubtedly were big issues. But then Musk came in and he worked day and night and assembled a crack team of programmers, and they gradually got it to where it was better than ever. And he did it all the while maintaining costs. Now, this is, if you want to be a capitalist, if you espouse to believe in capitalism, meaning if you're not a communist, right, then capitalism is that. It's delivering the best possible service for the lowest cost with the highest amount of profit. Like, that's it. And so Musk is going to get, mark my words here, little prophecy from your friend Sam, I think Musk is going to get much more unpopular. And then he will become one of the most iconic, popular, and revered Americans that ever lived. That's what I undoubtedly think. And it's going to be, right, it's going to be interesting because, he will prove, right, he's going to prove his value. And look, the kickoff, of course, being going into the Treasury, seizing control of the payment systems, getting these, 6, 7, Uber geeks coming in, writing code that is sifting through, years and years and years of fiscal mismanagement. And covering, by the way, just a treasure trove of absolute disgusting waste, government pet projects, and, as it turns out, a taxpayer-funded, opposition to conservatives or to anyone that is not aligned with the deep state. That in doing this, I think as time goes on, look, if people's taxes can come down, if we can get our budget, balanced, do you understand how popular Musk will be? Like, I mean, I don't know where you operate. Most Democrats I know like the idea of having a balanced budget, combined with the fact that for the first time we're going to experience the next 12 months an era where it's not just conservative media that has to find a way to fund itself. Liberal media will have to find a way to fund itself. They're not going to be able to rely on this wasteful, hidden, black ops budget that they had for so many years. So I'm telling you, this is going to be phenomenal. So there's going to hear a lot of people saying, Musk is going to wear out his welcome. Musk is going to be deeply unpopular. Look at Musk's numbers, how they're dropping, right? And they will drop. They are going to drop. They are not going to, there's going to be a lot of talk about this. But I think, all in all, there's going to be an enormous resurgence as we begin to see the fruits of it. Right now, we're not seeing the fruits of it, right? This money's out the door and we're not going to recover it. But once we stop the bleeding, there's going to be an immediate effect, a huge benefit for the whole economy. Okay, got to take a quick break here. Bottom of the hour. Of course, my email, sam@samandashlaw.com, sam@samandashlaw.com, and on X, @what'srightsam. And I do check my DMs on there, so DM me with questions, comments, or concerns on Twitter. Be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. The What's Right Show is brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust if you've been in an accident. 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Hi, and welcome back to the What's Right Show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840 KXNT. Now, friends, I do have some bit of news from this morning. Apparently, Trump's Department of Justice has now dropped the criminal investigation into James O'Keefe. O'Keefe, of course, is the founder originally of Project Veritas. Then he left Project Veritas, has been working on his own with a new media company. But O'Keefe is the guy who drew attention from the Biden folks because he purchased from a former roommate of Ashley Biden's her diary, right? So he's the guy who got the diary and then, was able to photograph and show to the world the part of it where Ashley Biden was detailing some disturbing showers that she and her dad, Joe, were taking together, right? Just really disgusting stuff. Now, the FBI tore into his home. They got the journal or, the diary. They confiscated it. But the new Department of Justice is coming in and they're unsealing the warrant. And I presume that means they're going to be, well, they've got the evidence. I assume they're still holding the diary. Maybe they turned that over to the Biden family and it's long been destroyed. But I don't know. I think that this is bad news for Biden. And certainly it's great news for James O'Keefe, who the Democrats all hate. He's the guy who gets everybody on a hidden camera talking about all the stuff they're doing in the deep state. I mean, he's been very effective at uncovering some stuff. So anyway, that's an update. Now, I was mentioning that the folks out there are upset about Elon Musk, hitting U.S. aid. Do not despair. This is my other point, right? It's going to get worse before it gets better. And Elon Musk won't despair at all. And his track record is such where and as I was explaining this in the last segment about Twitter and the amazing turnaround there. Because if you're just tuning in, Musk takes Twitter over. It's making $5 billion, grossing $5 billion a year and eking out like $680 million in profit. So he takes over Twitter. And now in 2024, they brought in, I think, only like $2.5 billion, in revenue. But their profit has doubled to $1.2 billion. And that's the kind of thing. If he can do that for the federal government, he will be everybody's hero. That's my point. Well, my other point is that, a year in, Musk was deeply unpopular and the Wall Street Journal was, writing horrible pieces about him, how he, is not an expert in all things. He should have stuck to building rockets and building cars and not dealing with Twitter, that he got distracted, that he wasn't good at it, that he's over his skis. They wrote all sorts of nasty, negative stories. By the way, Politico funded to the tune of $8 million. Oh, people are saying this, by the way. Oh, Sam, it's only $8 million over 6 years or over 5 years. I'm like, oh, excuse me. I am so sorry. I stand corrected. Our government, my tax dollars, your tax dollars, only $8 million of it went to support a left-wing rag publication. I feel so much better. By the way, a publication that itself was writing terrible, stuff about Musk. So, I digress. So what do we have here, right? We have, and you're going to see a lot of this. For example, Harry Enton, the data guy on CNN, did this the other day, did a whole report on how the public does not like Elon Musk at all. They just don't like him at all. They don't want to see him anywhere near the federal bureaucracy. Listen.
The American people did not sign up for this. They voted in Donald Trump. They did not vote in Elon Musk, a key role for Musk in Trump's administration. You see this 39% support, 53%, the clear majority opposed. They don't want this. The American people don't want this. No. Just 36% of independents support the idea of Elon Musk having a key role in the Trump administration. So the bottom line, when it comes to all of this and Elon Musk being everywhere, it seems, in the federal government, trying to trim down the federal deficit, the American folks, simply put, do not want Elon Musk having a key role in the Trump administration.
I just yawned, and it's not the jet lag. Look, I'm bored by this. I'm completely bored by this shifting opinion. The only time opinion polls sort of matter is when you've got an election that's days away. Where are we? You know, how is it? How's the election stacking up? Who's the likely candidate to win? Right? Where are the trends? I mean, polling matters then. There won't be an election that really matters, okay, for 2 years. And that's the very important point here. Musk, there is a timeline on this. Now, look, my point is he turned around Twitter in 2 years. If anyone can get this done before the midterms, meaning deliver a substantial benefit to the American voters, it's Elon. So the race is not to get this done in a week, to satiate, to please the talking heads on cable news. The goal here is to get this thing done, before the midterms, because the Democrats could, take over Congress, and I think things would get very tricky if Trump doesn't is facing, a threats of impeachment. By the way, Al Green was already threatening impeachment. I'm going to impeach Trump for dastardly deeds. That was the direct quote. Dastardly deeds. I think I've seen that in the Constitution. Very specific legal language. Okay. Don't despair, folks. Don't worry about this. They've got nothing. They really don't. Tuesday at the Democratic rally, Senator Chris Murphy said, "We don't pledge allegiance to Elon Musk." This is what they're going through. They got the whole oligarchy thing. They've got the whole this is an unelected guy thing. Well, this is what he said.
We don't pledge allegiance to the billionaires. We don't pledge allegiance to Elon Musk. We don't pledge allegiance to the creepy 22-year-olds working for Elon Musk. We pledge allegiance to the United States of America. And so I want to make sure that my mother gets her Social Security check, not because she pledges allegiance to Elon, but because she pledges allegiance to the United States of America. I want to make sure your neighbor gets their tax refund, not because they pledge allegiance to the billionaire class, but because they pledge allegiance to the United States of America. And so we have work to do right now. Every single one of us has a responsibility to stand up to this fraud.
That's a big word there, Senator Murphy, fraud. By the way, he's standing up there next to Maxine Waters, who looks like, if Madame's Tussauds had a fire, right? And the wax dummies began to melt. Imagine that's a problem, right? You can't have a fire in a wax museum. It would create all sorts of very obvious problems, and it would end up looking like Maxine Waters. And I know. Listen, folks, sometimes I get a little bit petty here, making fun of the way people look, but she just is horrendous inside and out. This is a woman who has threatened terrorism against conservatives. Okay, and so to have these people lecture us about allegiance to the United States of America when they've corrupted every public office they've ever been in, and we are, I think, just grazing the surface of the discovery of such immense abuse of our taxpayer money, used not for the benefit of all civilians in the country, all citizens, all humans that pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, but rather our tax dollars misused to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars to aid and abet the political purposes of the Democratic Party. I think this is all going to horrendously backfire on them. You've got CNN going, nobody wants Elon Musk, nobody, blah, 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 blah. And then you've got Maxine Waters and her cadre of Democrat losers demagoguing about what exactly? That Elon Musk and his young dorks are, nobody wants the creepy kids. You know, it's supposed to be the party that is all for youth. How many, Harry Sisson, right? He's the little gay boy that Biden had in there, paid a shill for the Democratic Party. I can't say Sisson without a lisp, personally. I don't know. Anyway, Robbie's laughing. I'm just saying, you all know who he is. Okay, so they spent Kamala Harris's campaign, right? We know, over $1 billion. They operated it in by the way, side note, I think Kamala operated her campaign basically how the Democrats operated USAID. So just money was flying out the door to all sorts of crazy things. And then what did they do? They were like, we're going to get out the youth vote. So they, got a few paid shills like Harry Sisson to get up there and help get the youth vote. And now they're putting down young people. And when it comes, by the way, if you are doubtful that Elon and Trump aren't doing exactly the right thing here, if you think that maybe they're not, I'll tell you this: there is no better person to go into a deeply corrupted institution like the federal government than a kid. Well, kid, 20-year-old, 22-year-old, 25-year-old. This is someone that when they look at something and question, what is this? Sir, excuse me, person who's worked here for 27 years, what is this line item here? And they're told, son, that's just the way we do things. The kid looks at that, it's like, no, I don't think so. I think this is a fraud on my inheritance in the future of this country is what this is. So may have been how you did things. It's not how we will do things. I actually think their age and relative innocence in the world is a huge asset for the DOGE program. Just, throwing that out there. Sam Mirejovsky, be right back after this. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, and you're listening to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. So one of the criticisms, I need to bring this up because it's an important point to consider about Musk is, his, I guess Democrats here shouting, screaming in some cases about the impropriety of Musk working in the White House. Now, at first blush, right, the president, of course, can have whoever he wants in whatever role he wants, unless it's a role that is subject to congressional oversight and approval, advice and consent of the Senate. So, for example, cabinet level positions, require advice and consent of the Senate. You're seeing those cabinet secretaries go through that approval process, and there's some other people in the government as well. Musk is not one of those people. Now, I bring up the example, and I have now several times, of Hillary Clinton. Nobody elected Hillary Clinton to remake health care during Clinton's first term, but yet there she was, working tirelessly to bring us socialized medicine. And everybody told us Republicans, conservatives, who were complaining about it to sit down and shut up, that the president had a plenary power to bring in anyone he wanted to work on his behalf. So the remaining sort of argument that you can make about Musk, and it is a legitimate argument, is that he has interests outside of the government. He's not just an employee. And so there's this, inherent conflict of interest that exists. Now, I don't know if Trump has designated, if the White House has designated Elon Musk as a special government employee. But there is a U.S. code section, 18 U.S. Code 202, that deals with this, and it gives a person can serve with direct administrative or operating authority. And apparently you can serve for up to 130 days in any 365-day period. Now, that would shorten Elon Musk's window down from, let's say, 2 years to, getting stuff done in about, a third of a year, right? A little bit more, 130 days. But it's not nothing, right? And this, position, by the way, has been around since 1962. So, it will be very interesting to see what, comes of all of these complaints and lawsuits, because I think, I think that this, it seems to be what he's doing absolutely legal. So when you have, the Democrats out there, when they are screaming about how, well, they're upset, right? Obviously, they're upset. He's gutting USAID. He's going after all of these sacred cows that the Democratic Party's been hiding from us. But, I really think that there's nothing illegal or even unethical about what Elon Musk is doing. And I'd be the first to criticize if he was, awarding himself, space contracts. But he had those. Listen, folks, he had those contracts. He was given his security clearance in 2022 by the Biden administration, right? I don't know. I mean, I think this really isn't about awarding more money for SpaceX. This is more about cleaning up an incredibly profligate waste that is apparently been completely normal and commonplace in our government. What is worrisome and what is actually potentially illegal is this constant, threats of violence from Democrats at these rallies. Yesterday at the Massachusetts State House, Senator Ed Markey renewed calls for people to fight. Look, and if they mean it literally and you're exhorting people to violence, it's a problem. Trump said protest peacefully, and they charged him in federal court as a former president with felonies. And now you've got elected officials that are saying, well, I'll let the words speak for themselves.
We have to stand up and to fight, to not stand on the sidelines, to have people by the millions are going to have to stand up and protest. When we come back here the next time, there should be hundreds of thousands and millions of people descending on Washington, D.C.
Well. Look, again, I'm a big, if what's good for the goose is good for the gander kind of guy. Organizing a revolt at the Capitol, to me, by the same people who supposedly are here to preserve democracy, is a little bit comical. So I'm just saying there's a lot of nasty stuff being said. Here's Caroline Leavitt at the White House press briefing yesterday talking about all of this agitation by the Democrats. I think Caroline, of course, has a point.
If you heard that type of violent, enticing rhetoric from our side of the aisle, from Republican leaders on Capitol Hill, I think there would be a lot more outrage in this room today. It's unacceptable, the comments that have been made by these Democrat leaders, and frankly, they don't even know what they're talking about. Because President Trump was elected with a mandate from the American people to make this government more efficient. He campaigned across this country with Elon Musk, vowing that Elon was going to head up the Department of Government Efficiency, and the two of them, with a great team around them, were going to look at the receipts of this federal government and ensure it's accountable to American taxpayers. That's all that is happening here, and for Democrat officials to incite violence and encourage Americans to take to the streets is incredibly alarming, and they should be held accountable for that rhetoric.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that it's an immediate exhortation of violence, yeah, certainly. Now, you know, I mean, it's Markey is going to say it's a political fight, political fight. We're going to peacefully protest. But these Democrats like the wow, the the melting wax dummy, literally dummy, Maxine Waters. Yeah, she's she's I mean, the comments, find them wherever they are and scream at them and chase them down and yeah, crazy stuff, right? I mean, these people they're all about violence. The left is entirely based around political violence is how they get their power. So, and it takes me really to the final point, and that is, Nick Sorter went to the Capitol and he was like, this reported that there basically was nobody protesting there because it was cold. So all these videos that you see of the 20 congressmen standing there, rah, 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 in front of them, there's like 5 people and 3 bums because it's flippin' freezing. Now, we come back. Trump signed some important legislation yesterday protecting young women and women in sport. Long overdue. And I'll tell you why this matters bigly. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings, friends. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Welcome to the What's Right show, powered by Sam & Ash Injury Law. That's right, Sam & Ash, not USAID. Self-sustaining over here, proud to report. My email, sam@samandashlaw.com, at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. So, yesterday, Trump signed the executive order banning biological men in women's sports, K through 12, and it basically ties with it. Your people are asking, how can you do that? And the answer is simple. The federal government can, by using the powers of the purse, funding, right, entice or persuade states to follow its lead. So you can condition the federal government can condition federal money and the release of federal funds based on certain criteria. Right. So the federal government cannot tell a state to adopt a certain law, but they can very much say, oh, if you don't do that, then you don't get paid by us. Right. And that's exactly what happened. So can we step back from this just for a second here? This issue, right, should have been a Democrat Party issue. If I think back to the Democratic Party of Bill Clinton, if I think about the Democrats of the 90s, I'm not talking about the 1950s. I'm just saying, because they would be in the KKK. But yeah, the 90s, Bill Clinton, protect women would have been as basic as it gets, right? It would have been like the most normal thing. Protect women. That's what we're going to do. We're the Democrats. We care about women. But somewhere along the way, the Democratic Party got all wrapped up in what? In literally in tranny town. Right? That's where they are. Suddenly, right? It was, okay, we got gays, we got some lesbians and homosexual men. Okay, good. Men want to get married, men and men, they want gay divorce. I always joke about gay marriage. It's not just gay marriage. You didn't just get gay marriage. You got gay divorce. Welcome to the club. Yeah, good luck. Careful what you ask for. Anyway, but look, I'm fine with it. I don't care. 2 men want to get married, no skin off my nose. I'm a let live guy. But the minute that they started putting grown-ass pervert men into female locker rooms and started convincing 12-year-olds to have their penises surgically removed or their healthy breast tissue cut off. I was done. Like for me, and I say this as a perhaps maybe a less culturally conservative, for me, that was like the line. So in this sense, I actually think that even though I'm a very conservative guy, in this sense, I really can get myself into the Democratic psyche. Like how many Democrats who really believe in protecting women, how many Democrats must have been absolutely put off that their party was the party that supported this nonsense, that it was their party that said Dylan Mulvaney is a woman. Because it's all fun and games, right? It's all cute. You know, oh, Dylan Mulvaney, right? This Bud Light dude that pranced around like, you know, I'm a woman, right? And it's all cute until Dylan, you know, shows up at my wife's gym and wants to go like change, you know, next to my wife. And at that point, Dylan gets, you know, my fist right through his, you know, makeup caked face. It's not because I'm anti-trans, it's not I'm anti-pervert. So, right, they lost this. The Democrats absolutely lost the plot. Now, the optics of what happened yesterday. You know, I finally, you know, late night, obviously here in Europe, I'm 9 hours ahead, so it's like getting things done. It's crazy. So I finally like kind of looked at everything. What Trump was doing and surrounded by the girls. So cute, but bunch of young athletes that have been affected by this, who've had to compete against boys who have the threat of being injured by, you know, persons much stronger than them. In fact, you know, it's almost funny because when you look at the whole idea of allowing boys compete against girls in sport, why have girl sports? Right at that point, just do away with it. This is a farce. But they say, no, we're not doing away with girl sports because that boy is a girl. He's not trans, Sam. He's actually a female. And these are the people that have the little flags in front of their front door that says, believe science. Psychotic. Now, Trump fulfilled his promise. Promises made, promises kept. I mean, that's a great theme of what we have seen over the last 2.5 weeks. So here's the video, right, of Trump signing the executive order. This is yesterday at the White House. Just the imagery of this is profound and powerful. So yeah. So let me play this here real fast. This is him, and I'm gonna deliver commentary for those of you.
Thank you very much.
Can't say it. There's a bunch of women
and girls. With my
and
action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding. So this will effectively end the attack on female athletes at public K-12 schools and virtually all U.S. colleges and universities. I don't think we've missed anything, but if we do, we'll make it up very quickly with an order.
Perfect. Riley Gaines standing behind him, obviously one of the key proponents of this, outspoken advocate. And, you know, Riley Gaines, again, if the Democrats had taken this issue, you know, we want to protect women. Right to choose. A woman has a right to choose. And a woman has a right to not compete against men and have them invade private spaces like locker rooms. But suddenly the Democratic Party became the party that actually, supported this trans insanity. And by extension of it, really were fine with little girls going into park bathrooms, their dads standing outside while some, hairy perv got to walk in going, I'm a woman. Like, there's no planet on which that makes sense, right? You just back me up on this. So what has resulted here is actually, in my opinion, a full pendulum swing, like a cultural pendulum swing, where we are rejecting this. And we're rejecting it in such a way like Nancy Mace. Look, I know she's kind of a feisty Republican congresswoman who sometimes is a bit into the theatrics of things, but, she led the revolt against having men in congressional bathrooms, right? And this is, was a big push on Capitol Hill to have, bathrooms be open to, whatever gender you think you are, go and use the bathroom. And there were instances of some men going in, and it's first trans person, and the whole story. So here's a hearing. I'm playing this because it shows to you that common sense is prevailing. The Democrats just sound so stupid here. So stupid. And so this was, I'll just give you the quick background here. This is a congressional hearing. Let's see here. This was yesterday, House Oversight hearing. And so they're talking about, these programs that they're discovering all this waste. And apparently Mace used a derogatory term to describe a transsexual. And the libs did what they do. They're the word police, right? You can't use the word retarded. You can't use the word, well, I'll let Nancy here speak for herself because she didn't hold anything back.
The gentlelady has used a phrase that is considered a slur in the LGBTQ community and the transgender community. And let me please finish without interruption. And
tranny. I don't really care. You want penises in women's bathrooms, and I'm not going to have it.
Okay.
No, thank you.
It's disgusting.
Now, this is a cultural moment. She doesn't care. She just says it. Tranny. Yeah, it's there's you want guys with penises in the women's restroom, and all of a sudden, getting to my point, all of a sudden, someone like Nancy Mace, who is kind of a kooky person, okay, my opinion, all right, sounds completely normal. Because any argument to the contrary is completely insane. And what is it that the Democrats worry about the most? Apparently, it's the use of the word tranny. They don't care, okay? And forget the halls of Congress. They don't care that my daughter, 11 years old, would go into a park here in Las Vegas, right? And go, have to go, go to the park bathroom, and there'd be some creep in there because he's a woman. That's not the issue to them. The issue to them is words. And you see, if you were watching the clip, you see the staffer who's wearing a mask standing behind the congressman who's raising this, I'm so offended, all this word that you used. And when she says tranny, this guy just, it's like an electrical failure, somebody like zapped him with, 220 volts instead of 120. It's like circuit overload. And that is basically a sum up of the Democratic Party right now. It is an absolute circuit overload. And I'll show you exactly here when we come back some examples of that in the media. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840. The What's Right Show is on and brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
The Sam & Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings and welcome to the program. So, obviously the same people at CNN that think that Elon Musk has worn out his welcome and that he's going to fail at reforming the government also bring you next level denialism on the day that Trump signed his executive order protecting young women in sports, K through 12. They think that this is all just basically bigotry. And I saw this Chris Mosier clip, and they brought on a transgender athlete. This was going on all day yesterday and into today. where they're doing a parade of everybody out there that possibly could explain why it's completely normal that girls should compete against boys, that it's really just a matter of being compassionate. Listen to this.
So when you hear people say, this is how it should be, trans athletes have a competitive advantage over non-trans athletes, what do you say to them?
There's no evidence that trans athletes have an advantage over anyone else in sports. Trans athletes play sports for the same reasons as anybody else, for our love of the game, to be a part of a team, to challenge ourselves, and most of all, for the youth level, to have fun. And every young person deserves that opportunity to be their authentic self and to play the sports that they love without compromising any part of who they are.
I'm curious about that, Chris, because you say that there's no evidence that there's a competitive advantage, but we've heard from parents who've had a different experience. They've argued that there is irrefutable evidence, irrefutable differences in physiology between the sexes, that hormone therapies don't sufficiently level the playing field. Do you get where they're coming from?
We have to look at what we're talking about here. And if we're talking about youth sports is part of our educational system. And as part of our educational system, young people learn values such as discipline, hard work, leadership, teamwork, communication skills.
Stop it. Wait, stop. Pause the tape. Look, by the way, I'm just going to describe to you what I see. I see a woman here with a very nice looking mustache. So that's what we have here. We've got a woman with a mustache, and she's explaining, right, with a little bit of a deeper voice about how, well, it's all part of the experience and everything. That wasn't the question. The question is there an unfair advantage? Listen to how this person doesn't answer the question. This wasn't about what's the experience and that it's part of the school, it's PE, you know. And by the way, we're not, look, like, we're talking about, there's two very important things here, right? There is the competition, right? And sport is about winning. That's what it is. When you compete at a certain level, I'm telling you right now, my kids, my 11-year-old girl loves to play basketball. When they lose, she's not happy. Okay. Is she the world's best player? No, but winning matters. So anything that gives, somebody unfair advantage over you, okay, is not fair in sports. Okay. Number one. Number two, I don't care if it's PE. I don't care if there's no competitive advantage. It's still sport. You still go to a locker room afterwards. You change, you shower, whatever. Gross, right? So this is a gal who wanted to be a guy, got some facial hair, and now thinks, she's a guy. So let's hear what she has to say.
Skills and so much more from their participation in sports. We know that each body is different, every person is different, and that even amongst cisgender kids that are not transgender, there are differences in their strength, their speed, their ability, their natural ability, as well as differences in their access to good coaching, to great equipment, to things like rest and recovery or proper nutrition.
The equity in sport. Got it. This is why DEI doesn't work in sport. Now we're to this, right? This guy's like, oh, it's a DEI thing. Okay, well, tell me how the hell the LA Lakers are DEI. I'll wait for their, I want to make sure that me as, well, I'm not that short, but I'm not that tall either. As an average height white male, I want to be better represented on the Lakers. Please. We're going to bring up equity in sport. This is so stupid. And the best part about this is that the Democrats are literally, they've given up an election. I would argue that this issue is one of the ones driving moderates and even many Democrats away from the Democratic Party. They're perfectly willing to give up electoral success and die on this hill. It's astounding.
And all of the things that go into making someone be a good athlete. And I think that people don't really consider those other factors. The laser focus has been on hormone therapy or testosterone. And when we're talking about young kids, which is part of what this executive order will be applying to, I think we really miss the mark when we're focusing so heavily on biology and not on the lived experience of kids who are just trying to have the educational experience as their peers.
Oh my gosh. I want them to keep it up. I want them to keep this up. By the way, I'm just going to say this, how many young boys who are probably experiencing some thoughts of maybe being, gay, aren't sure of who they are, have gone to their teachers, their school nurses, their parents maybe, and said, "Mom, I don't know, maybe I feel like a little bit girly." Normal circumstances, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, even 15, someone like this would say, "Well, geez, okay, all right, it looks like I got a gay kid, Now they're popping hormones. Now they're having surgery. It's just horrific. What we have done in the name of trans ideology around the world will go down as one of the great shames of Western civilization. Mark my words. And all of you that, walk around, "Oh, well, she's a woman," and I'm done pretending. I am done giving this any amount of dignity, because they have used our tolerance against us. They have used our kindness against us. And really what they've done is they've absolutely mangled a generation or two of young people. It is despicable. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. How about that Kamala 60 Minutes interview? Wow. Let's talk about that when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, back after this. Greetings and welcome to the What's Right Show. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. I am Nevada's favorite recovering Californian behind the What's Right microphone. So, Bill Whitaker, CBS News, 60 Minutes, did a pre-election interview with Kamala Harris. This was the interview that was supposed to show off Kamala's gravitas, her chops in foreign policy. They got into all sorts of stuff, particularly on the subject of the Ukraine war, on Gaza, on Israel, on Iran. And, I've watched now the unedited interview that's been released as part of Trump's complaint against CBS News, against 60 Minutes, which, it's interesting because in the beginning, right, we didn't know just how much this interview had been edited. Unless Trump had somebody on the inside, I don't know how they necessarily knew that this thing was pared down the way that it was. Although you can tell when you're watching the interview that there are quite a few cuts. In audio, it's easier to do. In video, it's more difficult. So you see these different cuts and you think, it's one thing if they're cutting between subjects, but it's an entire thing when she's giving an answer and there are these stops, right? And you can perceive them. And in one such example, she's responding to a question about Ukraine and about ending the war. And the clip that they played, well, I've got it here, and I might as well just play it for you because I'll start with the edited portion that was played, on air. And it starts like this.
Would you meet with President Vladimir Putin to negotiate a solution to the war in Ukraine?
Not bilaterally without Ukraine, no. Ukraine must have a say in the future of Ukraine.
As president, would you support the effort to expand NATO to include Ukraine?
Those are all issues that we will deal with if and when it arrives at that point. Right now, we are supporting Ukraine's ability to defend itself against Russia's unprovoked aggression. Donald Trump, if he were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. He talks about, he can end it on day one. You know what that is? It's about surrender.
Would you meet with President Vladimir Putin to negotiate a solution to the war in Ukraine?
Not bilaterally without Ukraine, no. Ukraine must have a say in the future of Ukraine.
Now, this is the unedited version.
How about, as president, would you support the effort to expand NATO to include Ukraine?
Those are all issues that we will deal with if and when it arrives at that point. Right now, we are supporting Ukraine's ability to defend itself against Russia's unprovoked aggression and doing what we can to continue to build and strengthen the alliance around the support for Ukraine's right to be an independent
all of this was cut
nation,
out.
Free
like all
from
of this was
having its
removed.
Borders forcefully taken by Russia. And we are going to continue to work closely with our NATO allies to continue to reinforce
like
America's alliance in the context of NATO. Again, in this election, there's a real difference between me and the former president. I believe in reinforcing the strength of NATO, understanding, again, it is the greatest military alliance the world has ever known.
And
Donald Trump would pull us out of NATO. Donald Trump,
and they cut to
if he were
this.
president,
so they played this part.
Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. Let's be clear about that. He talks about, oh, he can end it on day one.
All right, let's cut it. I'm just going to cut it because we don't need to run through this whole thing. But my point is, they took this giant part, right, where she goes, well, we need to right now we're supporting Ukraine's ability to defend itself against Russia's unprovoked aggression. And then they cut it to the ending where she goes, Donald Trump, if you're a president, Putin would be sitting in Kiev right now. Now, I see people on the left saying, well, Sam, it's really not that big of a deal. Like, look, it's removing some words, like they just had to tighten it up. They got to, fit this all into a time slot. Kamala Harris's biggest problem in communicating was that she never felt like she was smart enough to say what she wanted to say, so she just kept talking. Like, she just never embraced silence. So they were tightening up her answers because right around this time, everybody was criticizing her for constantly, serving word salad in her answers, right? I think it's material. You ask a question of an interviewee, and the interviewer asks it, the interviewee answers. It's a presidential candidate. Hear the person out. You don't get to tighten the answer up to make the other person sound better. Would they have done that for Trump? Because that's, of course, the $1 million answer. They would not have, right? So it's just wild what they were doing. By the way, they were cutting out, entire parts of this. Like, for example, got asked a question about Israel, and Kamala Harris answered, well, Bill, and I'm reading the transcript here. Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region. And we're not going to stop doing that. We're going to stop pursuing what is necessary. We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the U.S. to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end. And they basically took one answer from Face the Nation and added it to her answer that she gave at 60 Minutes in order to make it sound like, it was coherent. They were Frankensteining this thing, right? And I think that is, there's no journalistic integrity in that. That's the criticism. So when Trump says, I have a major problem with this, and I think that CBS News engaged in election interference, and I think that CBS News should maybe consider losing their license, or at least have to defend having a public license if they are conducting themselves as a partisan media organization. That's something to consider. And everybody's screaming about Trump, being a fascist and whatnot. There are a lot of rules, and I can tell you this as a radio host, there are a lot of rules during an election cycle about what you can and can't do. Even our little station here in Las Vegas has to follow all sorts of federal rules. So why do rules are there, and everybody's got to follow them, and there's fair play, that matters. So this to me is unbelievably scandalous. And I know there's outtakes here and there's videos of Kamala like blowing her nose and then the camera moving to give her the opportunity. I'm not worried about her blowing her nose on the camera. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not even talking about her being a colossal idiot, which is one of the takeaways from all of this. Meaning, seeing her on camera again and being reminded of her again, I can't help but thinking that one, we dodged a bullet, and two, I've been so relieved to not hear from her for a while. It's nice, and all of a sudden here again, I got Bill Whitaker asking her questions, blast from the past, of course, and Kamala Harris being talked to as a serious person, which is the fundamentally the funniest thing about this whole thing is to have these media people fawning over her or being so deferential to her when she's a complete moron that in the end absolutely sunk the political left for years to come. Some great savior of the Democratic Party she turned out to be. So there it is. Look, I'm none of this is good for the Democrats. None of this is good for the waning reputation of the mainstream media. Now, on the heels of finding out that USAID has been supporting a bunch of left-wing media outlets, including Politico, this is not good. This is not good. And it actually is funny to me because, it was Trump that called them out for editing the interview, and everybody that was defensive of CBS says, well, actually wasn't edited, just a little cleanup, touch up, a little trim there, here and there. And turns out it was far more than that. So voila, once again, Trump is right. By the way, don't you find it's funny how Trump has all these moments where he says something, everybody says, no, it's absurd, didn't happen, you're exaggerating. And then quietly, a month later, 2 months later, we find out that what Trump said the whole time was absolutely true. Incidentally, to that end, I really believe that's how it's going to turn out with DEI and that horrific crash just in Washington, D.C. Remember, everybody piled on Trump, and I think people just haven't learned that, he may be guessing. But this is a guy that guesses right a lot of the time. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. So I'm laughing about Trump and his pronouncements, right? The times that he'll say something like, for example, remember under Obama when they sent a pallet full of cash to the Iranian regimes, to the Ayatollahs? Obama, he's an idiot. He sent a pallet full of cash, and everybody in the media had a conniption fit. And they all said, well, no, it's not like this. He didn't send a pallet full of cash. Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. He's, what's he smoking, right? That kind of thing. And, well, and in the end, it turned out that he was absolutely correct. Pictures materialized of said pallet of cash being flown on it. It was right there on the tarmac. And then it was, well, it was just some cash and it really wasn't exactly right. And then in the end, people admitted that Trump was right. And there have been, this is not a singular thing, right? There have been moments like this, throughout Trump's, tenure on the internet, right? And in the public eye. And he tends to be more right than not. So, this tragic American Airlines Black Hawk helicopter crash in D.C., one of the things that he said is, he goes, look, that DEI, played a role in this. We got to end DEI. We got to get the most qualified people, in positions of great power and authority. And one of the things that we haven't talked about this here is it took a while for the Department of Defense to release the name of the pilot, the PIC, the pilot in command of the helicopter. Now, the reason this matters is because so far, based on all available facts and information, it seems that the helicopter was flying at the wrong altitude, perhaps even the wrong location. And when we say the wrong altitude, a couple hundred, maybe 300 feet higher in altitude than it should have been, which, seems to be the proximate cause of the disaster, of the crash. So who the helicopter pilot is matters. So it turns out that one of the things that, the family was asking them not to release the name or to hold off on releasing the name. And I don't know. Some people are saying that it's because there was some social media posts that this young woman, who of course tragically lost her life, that the family wanted to take down or make private. And that's fine. This particular gal apparently was a lesbian, although, again, plenty of qualified lesbian pilots. I have no problem with lesbian pilots. But, we know that in the past, under the past administration, your identity mattered for promotions. I saw here 500 hours of flight experience. And, I've talked to some people in the military that have told me that's exactly, appropriate for her to fly training flights, and that she would be placed as PIC, in command of the aircraft. Okay. Was she, and again, right, but the other thing is, like, there's been some conflicting things. Is she actually the pilot in command, or was she being trained? Right, not certain. But, it's, yeah, so I'll tell you, I think that Trump ultimately is we're gonna find out that, I think they're gonna find out that Trump was right. I'm gonna call it right now. I think that between what was going on in that tower, and that's going to be an associated factor here, because the tower should have had a lock based on radar. See, that's a controlled field, right? So everything's on radar. They should have been able to see that the helicopter was off altitude. Instead, the controller, who was, overworked and did not have backup, did not have another person there to help out, did not call out, simply told the helicopter, hey, you're in charge of staying away from the airplanes. The helicopter's like, yeah, I got it. Okay, we're not going to hit any airplanes. Well, they did. And I know that the media wants to downplay this because, again, for them, the identity of people is everything. And they want to continue in a fantasy world where we need to have equity. We need to promote up people from traditionally marginalized classes. But the 1,000 plus, white qualified air traffic controllers who, starting with Obama, were denied jobs and promotions at the FAA, I think might have something to do with the fact that maybe, just maybe, there wasn't that extra person on the job in this particular control tower. And maybe, just maybe, DEI and promoting up persons of color, gays, lesbians, etc., into positions of authority in the military, something that was very popular under the Biden administration, might have something to do with the fact that this pilot just was not qualified. And you're asking me, why wasn't the pilot qualified? Well, by the evidence that she flew her helicopter into an airplane. It's what they say. It's proof is in the pudding. So, and that's just tragic. I've been talking about this, folks, for years. This is what makes me so upset. I've been saying for years, I always give you the story, right? Those of you who listen to the program have for a while know exactly where this is going. I said 2 airplanes. They're both headed to, you're in Vegas. You want to fly to Phoenix. 2 airplanes side by side at Las Vegas International Airport, formerly known as McCarran. And gate, I'm going to make a number up, right? C-23 and C-24. They're side by side. And one plane has, merit-based pilots, crew, and mechanics. Okay? Everybody's there based off of merit. They scored the top of the test scores. They passed everything, with flying colors. Boom, 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 right? And behind that's gate 23. Gate 24, same airplane, same airline. I'm not going to make this all about Southwest, although those are Southwest gates. Same whatever, same airplane, same 737, MAX. Okay. It has its own problems. Okay. But the crew has been selected based on, on identity. Well, it would sure be nice to have a second-in-command co-pilot lesbian. That's great. We don't have enough lesbians working at Southwest, so let's get a lesbian in that cockpit. Was she the best of the, of the trainees in her group? Well, no, she wasn't. Is that because she's a lesbian? No, just because she's not that good as a pilot. But they really wanted to make it work. So they cut her a break. They promoted her up. They had 5 positions open that cycle. And they promoted 5 people up, but there were some people that had scored better on their exams than this particular gal did. Do I want to get on that airplane? And the reason, the answer is no. And it's not because I'm a bigot. It's because I love myself so much that I want to live. I have 3 kids. I have 2 daughters who I want to walk down the aisle. I'm very pro-life, my life. Okay, and so that's what it is. It's just evolutionary biology. I want the best chances to come home at the end of the day. And so, there's some things where DEI, I guess, it doesn't matter as much. It's like, oh, we're going to promote a pastry chef. Well, I guess my crumpet is not going to be as good as, it could. It doesn't matter. I'm going to live. It's going to be a bad crumpet. Scone, I don't know, whatever. That's not my point. My point is, it's food, it's not poisoned. I suppose it's going to be okay. But when it comes to the guy operating on my heart, or the pilot flying a plane, or other, high risk and dangerous, talent, required positions and jobs, I really want the best person behind there. Full stop. So I'm throwing this prediction down, Robbie. I'm saying this was DEI related, and when the dust clears on this investigation, that's exactly what we're going to find. Okay. Have a great day, folks. Back tomorrow. See you then. The What's Right show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.